Hi, so I'm here with Dave Matthews, who's primary art lead, and we're going to be talking about Project Origin. So, Dave, what can you tell us about the story of Project Origin, how it fits in with F.E.A.R?
Okay, well, Project Origin actually starts about 30 minutes before the end of F.E.A.R. So you play Michael Beckett, who's on a parallel mission along like where F.E.A.R. Portman was continuing on his story arc. Michael Beckett is trying to apprehend Genevieve Aristide. She was one of the main contributors to what became of Alma and how she what Project Origin is all about. And so as you start the game 30 minutes before the end of F.E.A.R., you're trying to apprehend her. At the end of the first mission, you get to experience that explosion at the end of F.E.A.R. firsthand. You actually see kind of the devastation that Alma's explosion can create.
So how important do you think the story is to a game like Project Origin?
The story is tremendously important. It was a very concerted effort. When we looked at F.E.A.R., we looked at what was the main story arc that we really wanted to tell, and that story is Alma. We want to talk about Alma, so in F.E.A.R. we talked about how Alma was a little girl and how she was finally released. Project Origin, we're starting to explain what happened to Alma, and now that she's out, what does she become, what she's capable of, and what kind of havoc she can create in the world.
So it's kind of a broad question, but how do you go about making a game scary? What do you think are the key elements?
To make a game scary it's no easy feat. But we look at a lot of inspiration. So tons of Japanese films we've watched, all sorts of Western horror we'll watch as well. But there's certain tenets inside of a Japanese horror about like how they do like slow builds and giving you pieces of information that feel a little esoteric, and then eventually they all start to become very concrete. Those are great moments that you can start to use and leverage inside of a gameplay mechanic, so that you can start to create those esoteric moments that you're not quite sure what's going on, and then when you think you have everything figured out, we can turn it on its side.
Sure. So are there other horror games that you've played that you think have done it particularly well, that you've maybe been influenced by?
Well, I think there's a lot of games that have done it really well. As far as inspiration, I'm not quite sure. I think we tend to lean definitely much more from a cinematic aspect, just because our action as well is very cinematic. We look to like Japanese horror films. Personally, I think if I was going to pick out some games, I think Fatal Frame it's a great game, and it definitely kept me on the edge of my seat. So
terrifying. Yeah. So what's new in Project Origin over F.E.A.R? What kind of new features can we expect?
We've greatly expanded the AI, so they're far more aware of the environment and environmental hazards. So we've given the player the ability to use a variety of weapons and increased his arsenal. So he has incendiary grenades, chaff grenades, things like that, and they all have environmental repercussions. And the AI are now aware of that, and they respond to it accordingly. Another piece that we've pushed forward on is we have the elite powered armor. A lot of people in the community said they wanted to jump into the powered armor from the first F.E.A.R. And we listened to that, but we upped the ante.
So in the first F.E.A.R, there was a lot of levels set in offices, indoors, and things like that.
A
lot of grey. Was there a decision to move towards different kinds of environments?
Well, absolutely. Again, we listen to the community. I mean, and there's a lot of things that we wanted to do, and ultimately when we finally put it all into the can, there was a few things we still left on the table. We wanted to bring those back in. If you're the player that like pushes into combat really hard and really aggressive about it, we want to be able to reward you in a way for that. If you're a person that likes to creep in and be a little more tentative and set up more defensive points and move through a little bit slower, we want to reward that as well. And so that kind of variety and that kind of experience became paramount in the transitions that we came from F.E.A.R. into Project Origin.
Sure. Are you able to talk about other game modes today, like multiplayer? Are you able to say what we could expect from that?
All I can tell you, because my handlers are around, is that we absolutely are going to have a multiplayer component. We're going to have a later date. We're going to talk about all the features that it has.